It's Dr. Rick, and I wanted to talk about the stress response. The stress response is something that we all try to negate or neutralize. Stress response, everybody knows, when you get stressed out, there's a response that an average human will go through. Higher blood pressure, higher pulse rate, faster breathing, change in vision, more broad and close versus far away and distinctive. All this stuff is to prepare you for running from predation or fighting predation, fight, flight, or freeze. If that's only a couple times in a year, good. If it's every morning as you drive to work and you're a FedEx driver, not good. The persistence and living at this level for a long amount of time will cause a backlash. Most people will have weight gain, high blood pressure, difficulty with sleep. They'll go through menopause and menopause super early. They'll have other problems, especially with regards to digestion. Weight loss equates to longevity. Those of you who say, I don't want to do that, well, living now and you're 50 and you want to live and die off when you're 70, but you die over the course of 20 years, you just have massive amounts of comorbid conditions. That's not a way to live and finish off life. If you want to fall out of the statistics, then I'd say we have to try to balance this out. I think a little bit of stress response is good. That's called hormesis. A lot of stress response is not good. So the question mark, is it helpful or is it not? I'll try to present my arguments. This one's a pretty decent study about telomeres. If those of you who follow Dean Ornish's work, he showed if you practice a vegan diet, practice yoga, mindfulness, and group therapy, you can actually lengthen your telomeres. If you lengthen your telomeres, technically you're supposed to live long with less cancer, less heart attack, less neurodegenerative disorders. That's just putting long telomeres into a nutshell, but there's many other variables. This is better than any other medicine, having the length of telomeres maximized. What I'm trying to bring out with this study is that there seems to be a relationship between a little bit of hormesis or stress response and telomere length. As far as Miroslav was concerned in 1975, that if you apply stress response properly, you should be able to manipulate chromosomes, genes. The question is, are you going to lengthen or modulate your chromosome, your telomere length? Miroslav Radman's a scientist. I think the data in this study is pretty decent. If you want to look it up, it's an easy read. Those of you who don't want to exercise, you're like, that hurts too much, and it does hurt. I will always profess you don't have to do what I do. What I've done is modulate from the time I was 17 up until 59 and 3/4 right now. I've modulated my lifestyle to maximize on output, avoid medical disease, and medications. And I like to self-experiment. I'm not always on the straight and narrow. I sometimes will fall off. I'll sometimes get angry, get hangry. I will oftentimes be stressed out with sleep. I'm a small business owner. These things I think everybody has. But if we can learn to have some kind of dedicated encouragement to live life, go back to your reset and live at a base level, I think that's fair. We'll always be able to engage those stressors as they come up faster. Dan Buettner pointed out in the blue zones, people in the world do live to 100, whether it's plant-based or not, whether it's some form of exercise over another, it doesn't matter. There's a potential blueprint for that, and we should try to emulate that. It's just a tough sell for my patients. Exercise, especially when somebody is mired down to say, my knees will not let me do that. Okay, we'll get physical therapy, we'll do upper body, or my shoulders are shot. Okay, well, forget the upper body, we'll do lower body. I am limping. Okay, well, we'll do something else. But there's always an option. If you look at the only other option, if we don't move at all, sloth is one of the deadly sins, according to Roman Catholic lore. There's going to be a problem with that sooner or later, especially if you eat like an average American. The idea is, let's see how we can use that hormesis theory to maybe stimulate us to move. And it's summertime, so I think a lot of people are encouraged to get outside and move. Here's another study that just talked about how the cells of the body respond when there is a stress response. If there's a continued stress response, not good, but if there's a pulsed stress response, I think this would be helpful. The study talked about adaptive vitality and adaptive fitness when you have some kind of applied stressor. And the stressor, it's not going to be a chemical stress, it's going to be more of a physical stressor. Hopefully it's not going to be a psychological stressor, but that in little doses can help as well to make us adaptive to other things down the line. I know that now at 59, I cannot tolerate a lot of the stuff I used to tolerate in my 20s. As far as exercise, I can do that. I can probably do more because I've maintained it. My patience, I might be getting old man grumpy. If the conversation's not getting anywhere, it's not helping me, I might as well step away. This is a nice study. Again, it's short and sweet, but it does give you a couple of ideas about physical, chemical, thermal. Thermal was one too. Those of you who are interested in sauna. Psychological, it depends. I have a psychologist who I'll probably interview sooner or later, but a lot of the data comes from plant and animal studies. This was more of the plant kingdom, finding that there was a benefit plants would respond to when introduced to stress. The stress response, again, is hormonal, but this is a nice little illustration. You can see how with too much stress, you'll have destruction and death. But with just enough, you have to see that sweet spot. Where is the sweet spot? In plants, it depends on the plant. I love this tea. This is green tea, high-end Japanese tea. And one of the ways that they bring out the essence of this tea, in Japan, you truly get gyokuru to start to blossom. You shade the bush. You shade the bush right before it's about to peak, and that induces a stressor to the plant. And because it induces a stressor to the plant starts to blossom as far as its leaves and its taste. It becomes very flavorful after that cover or after that stressor. And that's a common technique that the cultivators have found for years and years. There is a science in the plant kingdom, or at least the harvesters of the plant kingdom, that can easily be extrapolated to humans, I think. Now, would I shade me? No, I wouldn't shade me, but I would induce a stressor, which is why I think hormesis is powerful if you pulse it. This is the last of the studies. Hormesis works in humans too. Even if it's a small study, it's just presented tonight to show you that there is a reason to do some type of pulsed investment in a change. So how do I make all this actionable? How do we, like plants, live long and without disease? Well, I think there's a couple steps. The first thing is to be real, looking for your summit. The summit, I always say summit because it's hiking, and calculate what kind of damage you're going to go through. Those of you who haven't really invested in exercise in a long time, have gained weight, and haven't really tempered your diet, you're going to have two bits of pain. Number one is the muscular pain from just moving more than you have. Leg cramps, shin splints, bad knees, bad back, aching, problems with the shoulders. All those things can happen, and if you do take that into account, at least you'll enter into it a little bit easier, or maybe get into a physical therapy center so they can fix your deficiencies first. You can temper the way you enter into it, and you can account for the recovery time that you need. I just ran a 5K, and I know I'm going to have problems. I do fine during the run, but I have problems about 24 to 72 hours after. I look like I'm really 60 years old. I mean, an average American is 60. I'm hobbling like this and going, ouch, ouch, ouch. But I know I'm going to get better. I pump up with protein. I take my turmeric. I use my CBD. I use my topical stuff, and I recover fast. Thank God. But I know that won't last forever. I think 2 weeks is good enough to break you in as far as muscular activity. Now, the other thing that you have to take into account, as I mentioned, is if you haven't done a restrictive diet in a long time, or just paid attention to your diet, just paying attention will usually have you lower your total calories per day, meaning caloric restrictions. When you go through that for the first time in a long time, you're going to feel grumpy, you're going to feel hangry, you might not be able to sleep because there's a stress response going on. The first couple of days are tough, but as you get past that hump day, you'll actually feel pretty decent. You'll need less food. You'll be satiated, meaning that you won't be hungry just with a smaller amount of food or calories per day. And your body will be starting to burn fat. That's when you become metabolically flexible, meaning you not only burn glucose and carbohydrates, but you also burn fat, which is what you've been storing for about 2 years, or some of you 10 years. You have to get through that wall of fire too. Sometimes I'd say when you start to break into the spiritual aspect, it's not so painful. I think that when people try to sit down and meditate, or just calm, or turn off their phone, it gets to be annoying. It doesn't hurt, but it's just very annoying. Yeah, people usually can't sit like that for more than 2.5 to 5 minutes. I think when you have faith or a practice, I'm Catholic and I've been brought up with prayer and going to church. I'm used to kind of settling down. Even martial arts, if you guys who practice martial arts, you're used to settling down, concentrating, and then focusing and or getting in touch with your higher power. Those of you who don't have any spiritual practice, it might be tough. So that too, it's not as tough as being hangry, being non-satiated, hunting for food. It's not as tough as having muscular pain, but still, plan and calculate damage recovery. I'd say 2 to 3 weeks. Take a goal of going with me to Zion in September. More 3 months to get ready. So if we take 2 to 3 weeks, once you break the muscles in, once you break that stomach and that appetite down a bit, you can then accelerate. Everybody's a little different, but you'll be able to conjure the spirit of your youthful exercise, kind of throttle your investment so that you don't have too much blowback, you don't have pain for too long, delayed onset muscle soreness. But that's the acceleration phase. You turn it on. You might even, as far as nutrition, clamp down even further on caloric intake. What I like to do, take your total of calories per day, calculate it up, and just squeeze it into an 8-hour feeding window. Technically, you're not decreasing your caloric intake, you're just squeezing everything into 8 hours. That too will trigger fat loss. Just to round it off to the 3 different variables that are necessary for lifestyle change, if you have found spirituality, whether it's 4-7-8 or meditation, rosary, mantra, recitation, accelerate that even further. So that's the acceleration phase. Then you can maintain, say in about 2 months, 3 months, hold that for a while. The objective is you hit your goal. You hit whatever you've been working for and you conquer it. And you pat yourself on the back. I think there's props to be given if you make it through all these phases and you hit your summit or your goal, whether it's a 5K or going with me to Zion, hitting a couple of kick-ass adventures. Bottom line is once you hit the summit, time to celebrate. And then after that, restore. I think that restoration is important, taking a break. And typically in Chicago, there's times between season where you're supposed to detox again to get the gut ready for the new activity or the new food, and also to get the muscles ready for a little bit of hibernation or winter sports. So this is it in a nutshell. This is how I would take activity, pulse it to develop a higher level of hormesis so that we can use the stress response to our advantage and get through the 12 months and actually calculate on from 12 months to a decade. If we can start planning a decade ahead of time and fare great with lifestyle change and sustain that every time and make it interesting, that's the beauty of this thing. So hopefully you get something out of this. If anything, if you don't have any ideas, then come consult with me. I'll leave a link down below for how to get in touch with me, but always think that there's a way to change. Even if you have 20 different medical problems, there's always a way to change, one at a time and one day at a time. So thanks for watching up to this point in time. Think about subscribing and I'll see you at the next video.